Sinn Féin today are outlining our plan to deliver a school transport system that works for students and that works for families across the state. And every year at this time we are reminded again and again of the failures of the government to plan for the school proper transport system, and so many students left high and dry without places on the bus. Our plan would expand the school transport system and would deliver an additional 100,000 school bus places over the next 5 years. It would mean that students would be able to get a guaranteed place on a school bus, including those who live closer distance to schools, by reducing the post-primary requirement from 4.8 kilometres down to 2 kilometres, and the primary school requirement distance from 3.2 down to 1 kilometre. Crucially, our plan keeps the current rates of payment at the rates that they're at over the next 5 years, and that is important, particularly given that so many families are stretched in the middle of a cost of living crisis. The cost of this plan over 5 years is an additional €250 million of investment to deliver a proper and fit for purpose school transport system. And it's an important investment, it's an important marker, but it's also important that we lay down the trajectory of travel so that there's certainty in terms of where we're going over the next number of years, and to bring that uncertainty away from both bus operators, bus Éireann, and indeed the pupils and the families themselves. So today we're setting out that there is a better way, that better way is possible, and that Sinn Féin has the solution in relation to dealing with the crisis that we face every single year as a result of government inaction on this issue. So I'll ask Sorcha Clark to outline some of the key aspects in relation to our school transport system policy.
Pearse is absolutely correct. Every year, and you can almost set your clock by this, the school transport causes absolute chaos, the length and breadth of the country. We have children who want to be on the school bus, we have families who want their children on a school bus, yet what we don't have is an adequate supply of school buses to ensure that they can get there safely, and also that our roads are safe for pedestrians to be on, and that the children feel comfortable on those buses getting to school. So as we said, this investment is an additional 250 million over the course of 5 years, which significantly ramps up in the year of 2026, because that's when we want to ensure that the majority of the reduction in the distances is front loaded into that piece of work. The remainder of the cost is associated with the increase in pupil numbers, but by the time we get to that point, we want to ensure that the reductions that were recommended in the school transport review have been fully implemented. This is a review that took years in its making, one that to my mind should not have taken that length of time, and what we are committing to here today is to option one with some adjustments around the Sinn transport, and to ensure that the funding is available and made available at the appropriate times over the course of 5 years to deliver what is desperately needed. This is no longer a geographic lottery. This is an issue that is the length and breadth of this country. There is not a week that goes by where a parent isn't on the phone saying to me, I can't get a child on a bus. This bus is no longer running. Sunday evening, some parents were told that their buses weren't going to be operational the following morning when their children were going back to school. This is not acceptable. It is simply not good enough. And we have seen not only this minister but successive ministers abdicate responsibility to the Department of Education and to Bus Éireann, when ultimately they are the ones who are responsible for setting this policy and for ensuring that it is implemented and fully funded to best deliver for the families and the children who are trying to make their way to school safely.
Can I just ask?
We'll just ask Pauline to come in as well, our spokesperson in special needs, to say a few words, and then Matt, and then we'll open it up for questions if that's okay.
Yeah, well, as my colleagues have said, every year at this time of year it is chaotic. There are students without bus tickets going back to school. In my locality, for example, there are 18 students in one area on one bus who did not receive tickets for this year. Some of them had tickets for the last 4 years. It should be safe to assume that they've received tickets for their final couple of years in school. And parents are not in a position to bring them to school. They have full-time work, or they have younger children that they have to put on the primary school bus or take to the local creche. And it's not actually economically viable for them to be bringing them to school. It's not environmentally viable either. We should have a bus on. It's simple. Just put a bigger bus on the route and cater for these children. They have to be able to get to school. They're not going to change school in the middle of their school term. So and we find out as well every year there are parents on tenterhooks wondering, are they going to get bus tickets in August or not? They shouldn't have to be in that position waiting to hope and see that they will be lucky enough to be taken up and get or given tickets for the bus. Also, some bus routes, parents have only found out on Monday of this week that there was no bus to bring their students to school. Every year there are children with special educational needs who do not have transport arranged for them, and they have to wait weeks sometimes for transport to be put in place. That is just sheer and pure lack of planning, and it is time for the Minister to take responsibility for this and to do something about it and not let this go on.
Thanks. And Matt's just going to say a few words on that as well, and maybe address some of the issues in terms of Palestine over the last 48 hours as well.
So just on school transport, and just to concur with our colleagues here, and my guess is that if you spoke to any member of this House, they would tell you about local experiences of poor, bad management that has resulted in absolute chaos for many families, and on an annual basis we are all dealing with situations where bus routes are cancelled or where children have their bus tickets removed at the last minute, and catastrophe that can be for family life. But I have to say the worst example of that practice emerged for me this week. Many of you will have heard us speaking about the fact that County Monaghan doesn't have a special school. It's one of only 2 counties in the state that doesn't have a special school, and therefore children from County Monaghan have to get school transport to go to the school in Holy Family in Cootehill. On Monday, families on that bus route were from the Clonus and North Monaghan area to attend the Holy Family School were informed by Bus Éireann that route would not be available for them this week. That has caused an absolute crisis in these families. These are families of children with, in some instances, profound additional needs. Every part of the children's lives has to be meticulously planned for by their parents, and it appears that the Department of Education and Bus Éireann do not put the same level of planning into a service that these children have always had. So today there are 7 families that are in absolute turmoil because their children who depend so much on routine have had that routine completely upended by the failures, and it is just another example of Bus Éireann not managing the system properly, not communicating with people quickly enough and not resolving the issues as quickly as they emerge. But it is also an example of a department and a Minister for Education who has had a complete hands-off approach to these issues, and what we're saying today is that isn't good enough. Sinn Féin have a policy proposition that will address the entirety of the school transport system over a lifetime of a government. But right here and right now we can address the needs of those families and individuals that Pauline and Sorka and Pierce have spoken to. I just want to mention briefly the Taoiseach is in Brussels today, and he has made some welcome, hard-hitting statements in respect of the Israeli ongoing genocide against the people of Palestine, the escalation of events in the West Bank. And those remarks, as I say, are welcome, but it is our contention very strongly that government need to move beyond rhetoric and actually take meaningful action in response to what Israel is doing, which is in gross violation of international law. It is important that we call on the European Union to take measures, but those words count for less when the Irish government haven't taken the type of measures that it can do. So today I will be seeking an urgent meeting with the Taoiseach to discuss how we can advance some propositions that have already been brought to this House in respect of Sinn Féin's illegal Israeli settlements divestment bill, in relation to the occupied territories bill, in relation to signing up as a matter of urgency to the International Court of Justice case in respect of the Genocide Convention. And I think it will also be important that we get clarity from the Taoiseach as to the role and the knowledge of government in respect to the alleged incursions of Irish sovereign airspace by aircraft that have been facilitating Israel's ongoing genocide in Gaza and the West Bank. The time for strong rhetoric has now passed. It is now time for action.